Hello and welcome back to our second part discussion on nutrition. Today is kind of goes along with what we did yesterday, so we're not really getting into specific topics quite yet. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition and body composition and how we need to change our fat to muscle ratio. Yesterday we made sure we emphasized the importance of, for fitness, what we're actually doing is you can't flex fat. We're changing, I tried to lay the groundwork for the importance of changing your body composition. And today we're going to kind of lay very generally the groundworks on how we're going to accomplish that, how we're going to change your fat to muscle ratio. And a couple of things that we definitely want to discuss is, one of the things that we talked about yesterday was in no other area of fitness are there more myths and I guess you would just call it myths that are associated with in fitness than nutrition. There are more misconceptions that people have about nutrition based on bad information that they've been given via the media, trainers, you name it, just information that's not correct. So it's very, very important to break down some of those myths, to look at things that are, real world, things that are factual, and because you have to understand the nutrition industry, whether it's the infomercials on TV, whether it's most fitness coaches or whatever it may be, most of these programs are based on self-promotion and based on marketing, and not necessarily what's best for you. So a good coach, now we're talking about the generals, and so any of the specifics, when you get someone that's actually coaching you with nutrition, they must come, as what we said yesterday, as a myth buster. And probably one of the most important things with your nutrition. And we're going to talk about specific areas on how to change your, how to change your body composition. But probably one of the biggest things that we want to look at is something we call nutrient density. Because there is, and we'll talk about that later, but I just want you to remember the term nutrient density, because with all our clients, we talk about that considerably, and how that is probably one of the most important factors in nutrition is getting nutrient density into someone's body. But really, there are, when we work with clients, when we get into nutritional coaching, there is a lot of specifics. There's a lot of details that go into it, and especially when we customize it for an individual, it really gets specific. But for the most part, with everyone involved, no matter your level, of fitness, whether you're beginning, advanced, athlete, bodybuilder, whatever it may be, it all has to come from calories in versus calories out. If you consume less calories than you burn, you will lose weight. If you consume more calories than you burn, then you're going to gain weight. And I guess the question is, how do you know? How do you actually know how many calories you're taking in, how many calories that you're burning? And with with how great, one of the great things about technology is there's a lot of ways that you can very accurately decide what you're doing and what you're consuming, what you're burning. And the device that I love, the device that I try to get all my clientele to use, is this. A lot of people know the Body Bug. This is a version of the Body Bug. This is something called an Exerspy through .fit. Body Media makes it. It's something that's promoted through National Academy of Sports Medicine, the Health Fitness Professional Network, the HFPN. Basically, though, it is a device that you wear on your arm that helps you to identify activity and how many calories that your body's probably burning throughout a daily basis. And then through tracking your own food intake, you can kind of look at how many calories you're ingesting versus how many calories you're burning. And for most people, you'll ask them, how many calories do you take in? And they usually can't tell you. I personally, unless I track it, don't know. The only way that I know how many calories I'm taking in is if I'm either following the no-nonsense approach, like I told you yesterday, where I know exactly every morsel that goes into my body, and I do it on a daily basis, the same thing, or if I'm tracking my food. But other than those two, you have no clue how many calories you're taking in. So if you're really trying to manage your weight loss, managing the calories in versus calories out with accurate devices is very important. You can go on and do generalized forms on calculating where your calories out is, but actually looking and wearing an accurate device that helps to monitor the amount of calories that you're burning and outputting, and then logging what you're doing, taking in. That's going to be the best way for us to manage your weight going forward, your body fat going forward, and look at your patterns for nutrition. And probably one of the most important things is your own personal education, because almost all coaches were here for you. I mean, I think all coaches would say one of our biggest prides is actually being able to help people. But in order for you to be able to really maintain your progress long term, you have to be able to help yourself. You have to be able to know. You have to be able to be your own myth buster. You need to be able to discern things that are on the television, infomercials, advice from coaches, and you need to be able to look at that and say, that's good advice, that's accurate what they're saying, or I don't think that's truthful, I don't think that's helpful, I don't think that's going to be good for me. And so the best thing that we can provide you, the best thing that any coach can provide you, is the education, so you're more what I would call dangerous with nutrition, so you can bust your own myths. So let's look at some specific things, some specific ways that you can alter your body composition through nutrition. And probably the best way is to balance your macronutrients. Balance your proteins, carbohydrates, and fat with each meal, to have a balance of them throughout. There are a lot of gimmicky diets. There's a lot of very hardcore diets, and actually I personally follow some of them. But in the beginning, when you're first trying to get into nutrition, when you're first starting to learn nutrition, the most important thing that you can have is a balance, to have a good ratio of protein, carbohydrates, and fat at each meal. And once you have your nutrition under control, once that isn't really a hurdle for you any longer, then you can get into some of the radical nutritional plans that are out there. But in the beginning, there has to be a balance between protein, carbohydrates, and fat. We are famous for radical diets. We are famous for the up day, down day, for rotational diets. But those are usually only recommended for people that have their diet under control, and for those that can have a baseline or a foundation of good nutritional habits and are looking to take it to the next level. So yes, we are radical with a lot of our diet principles, but they're there once someone has good nutritional habits established, not before nutritional habits are established. So one of the other really important things that we want to look at when you're first trying to get on good nutritional patterns is the ability to eat more whole grains, more fresh fruits and vegetables, and more fresh meats. You really want to try to avoid as many refined grains, as many simple sugars, simple fruits and vegetables, and processed meat. Those are all things that are, if you can do that, along with having balance with your macronutrients throughout the day, you'll notice a significant difference. Also, eating 4 to 6 meals a day, eating frequently throughout the day, it's going to help you control hunger. It will also help you to minimize the blood sugar issues that many people have, and it also helps to increase energy. So eating more frequent meals throughout the day is something, and these are baseline things. These are very basic principles, but they're very important. Also, we want to avoid empty calories and high processed foods. I guess the best way to, anything that you can think of, whether it's fast food, high sugary foods, more empty calories are going to have a greater percentage of calories. And that gets back to the nutrient density that we were talking about. The example I always use is taking a bowl of grapes and a glass of soda. They each have exactly the same amount of calories, the same amount of carbohydrates, but the amount of nutrients that are in the grapes versus the soda is significantly different. And we want to use that pretty much throughout all things nutrition. So we want you to take in the right amount of calories. We want you to take in the right amount of protein, carbohydrates, and fat. But the nutrient density, how much nutrients are packed into those foods, are going to help you considerably, because it's really, really easy to eat empty calories and let those calories really, really get out of control, and for for you to get calories up really high. However, if you're eating foods that are very nutrient dense, things that have a ton of nutrients and have a lot of volume to it, like vegetables, where they have a lot of volume to it but not a whole lot of calories, that allows you to get your nutrient density levels up. It makes you feel as though you're taking in a ton more food, but the reality is your calorie levels are still staying low. When you eat simpler foods, the amount of food, the volume of food that you can eat is quite a bit less. Also, if the more empty your calories are, the more dense the calories are in the food, the more hungry you typically get. So we want nutrient density, not calorie density. Also, which we will have an entire section on, drinking a lot of water. Just know that drinking a lot of water helps you a ton, and we'll have a whole section dedicated to why. We want to weigh and measure and log all of our food. As we've talked about in our goal setting, how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you're currently at? If you want to set goals and be serious about your goals and have a vision for where you're going and then put the right strategy together, how can you accomplish that accurately if you don't know what you're taking in? So weighing and measuring and logging all your food, what it does is it does two things. It makes you more aware. It makes you more aware of what you're doing, and it makes you to be more accurate in what you're doing. And finally, it will help you to be less frustrated. You will be able to reach your goals more predictably, and you'll be less frustrated, and the whole enjoyment of being in a fitness lifestyle is going to be much, much better. And finally, we want to talk about meal timing and workouts. And first and foremost, we want to look at the balance of carbohydrates, protein, and fat, the amount of calories, and nutrient density. How much nutrients are you getting in for the amount of calories that you're consuming? And then, but finally, once that's all under control, then we can talk about meal timing. When you take in carbohydrates, when you want to take in food throughout the day, when you want to avoid certain foods, and most importantly, specific strategies on taking in that window of taking in more simpler carbs and protein pre and post training to help with recovery from working out. Those are all important things as well too that we will get into or can get into, but there is an importance to meal timing and the types and amount of foods that you take in pre and post workout. But that is secondary to your macronutrient ratios, how much protein, carbs, and fat spread throughout the day, how many meals, how many calories you're taking in versus calories out, and the nutrient density versus caloric density. I appreciate you joining us today. Tomorrow we're going to get into our next section, which we're going to actually be talking specifically about proteins.
When you feel that something's wrong, I'll shelter you and keep you warm. I'll never let you walk alone. I love